I know it has been a long, long week. But I know Democrats, I saw some of y'all on that dance floor last night. I know you got some moves left in you. Come on, folks. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Thank you all, Democrats. Thank you all so much. Thank you for all that you have done over the course of these last few weeks and months and years, exactly. First of all, before I get started, I wanted to make sure that I brought to our attention that tomorrow is the 21st anniversary of 9/11. And I was here in D.C. as a young professional working at a nonprofit. I lived in Alexandria, Virginia. That morning, drove from my home past the Pentagon, and that evening, drove from work and had to pass the Pentagon once again. And I remember pulling off on the side of the road, seeing the smoke still billow from the Pentagon's offices, smelling the smoke. To this very moment, I can still feel and smell it. Still feel that moment. I was shaken to my core, and tears ran down my face. Our freedom had been attacked. Our nation had been attacked. And so many Americans lost their lives. When I think about what we're doing now, we're once again fighting to make sure that we secure our freedom. Let's make sure, folks, that we just pause. Pause to remember those who lost their lives at 9/11 and those who went on to protect American democracy and still protect American democracy today. So if you join me in just a moment to pause in remembrance as we never forget 9/11. Thank you, my friends. You know, folks, this really has been a fantastic week. Going around to each of the caucuses, committees, and councils, I saw just how deeply you all care about the work we do. I saw how motivated you are by your desire to address the everyday needs of your communities. That's who we are as Democrats. We fight for ordinary people. It starts at the very top with President Biden. Think back to where we were just 2 years ago. The pandemic was raging. Most folks were unvaccinated. Many were out of work. They were desperate for help. Think about the fear and uncertainty you felt because of the former president who seemed unwilling or unable to meet the moment. And that's the reality we were facing when President Biden and Vice President Harris were elected. Immediately, Democrats got to work. In President Biden's first 100 days, we passed the American Rescue Plan. Look at the historic job creation we have right now. The historically low unemployment. We laid the foundation a year and a half ago. Then we passed the bipartisan infrastructure law. We're paving roads and fixing bridges. We're ripping up lead pipes. And like my good friend Governor Whitman likes to say, we're filling the damn potholes. In places like the Low Country in South Carolina, where we've watched hospitals close left and right, this bill will make sure folks have the internet that they need for telehealth. Parents in places like St. Louis can finally stop worrying if the Superfund site down the road is poisoning their kids. We passed the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the most significant gun safety law in decades. Thoughts and prayers were not enough, my friends. We needed to do something to make sure kids would feel safe at school, and so we did. We put Justice Jackson on the Supreme Court because it was long past time to build a court that looks more like our nation. I like to say during those hearings they called her everything but a child of God, but today, my friends, they are calling her Madam Justice. Every little black girl in this country now knows that if they put their mind to it, they can be a Supreme Court justice when they grow up. These accomplishments, my friends, we're just getting started. Last month, the president kicked it into high gear. He signed the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the PACT Act. With these laws, we're going to take care of our veterans, bring down costs, lower the price of drugs like insulin, and make our nation's single largest investment in climate action ever. The president provided targeted student debt relief to working and middle-class families. Yes, yes. Who are these people? These are the nurses who keep us healthy, the teachers who educate our kids, the police officers who keep us safe. They deserve our support. My friends, any one of these accomplishments would be monumental. They would define a presidency. We got it done in less than 2 years. In less than 2 years, we stood up to the NRA. We stood up to the big oil and big pharma. We stood up to billionaire tax cheats and giant corporations. We sent a powerful message to all of the special interests. When Democrats are in charge, the government works for everyday folks. My friends, in 60 days, we can ensure our government continues working for you. The Republicans have told us who they care about, and I can tell you, it's not working people. If they worked for working people, then they wouldn't want to cut Social Security and Medicare. If they worked for working people, then they wouldn't be threatening our health care. They wouldn't have blocked Democrats from capping the cost of insulin at $35. If they worked for working people, they wouldn't have been fist bumping after trying to tank a bill to expand health care for our veterans. If they worked for working people, they wouldn't be pushing extreme abortion bans across the country with no exceptions for rape or incest, bans that affect the people we love. If they worked for working people, they wouldn't be making it harder for ordinary people to just have their voices heard. But that's who they are. That's what their extreme MAGA agenda looks like. It's self-serving. It's out of touch. The American people can't afford it, my friends, and they don't want it. The people of Kansas just proved it. Pat Ryan and Mary Peltola, they proved it. As chair of the DNC, I'm going to do everything in my power to defeat the GOP in 2022. We have built our largest voter protection team ever. We've already more than doubled our investments from 2018. We had people on the ground in battleground states since last year, earlier than ever before. We're getting our message out in over 36 languages. We're working together with broad coalitions like community activists, climate advocates, young people, our friends in the labor movement, our sister committees at the DCCC, the DSCC, and DGA, our sister committees at DAGA, DLCC, and folks across the country. My friends, we are going to elect Democrats all across the nation. All across the nation. You know, the GOP can try all they want to distract and divide us, but they will fail because we know what makes a Democrat. A Democrat can be a parent who doesn't want to worry about whether they'll see their kid again when they drop them off at school. A Democrat can be a diabetic who's sick and tired of having to decide between insulin and groceries every month. A Democrat can be a young activist who knows we have to be bold if we want to address the climate crisis. A Democrat can be any one of the millions of Americans that believe women should be allowed to make choices about their own bodies. It's the millions of Americans striving to build a better America. It's people like me, the son of a single mother, raised by my grandparents. Folks, I know what it's like to worry about bills, to see family put off doctor visits because they're too expensive. I know what it's like to scrounge around for every penny just to pay the tuition bill, to feel the pressure of student loans and know if that Pell Grant doesn't come through, I'm not going to college. You know, my grandma always says, she said, Jamie, people aren't looking for a handout. They just want a hand up. Democrats provide that hand up. And I know it, folks, because I have lived it. And these past 2 years, we saw it in action. I don't just want that to be a thing of the past. It has to be about who we are right now. I want to close, and some of you have heard me tell the story, but I will continue to tell the story because it is my story of hope. When I think about our party, we are a party built on hope. Many of you know that I used to work on Capitol Hill, and I was in my office late at night. There was a black woman, member of the custodial staff, who was walking by my door. And she kept walking by. And finally she stopped, and I looked up and I saw her there in the doorway. And I said, ma'am, do you need to come to my office? And she said, yes. Then she said, you know, I come into your office every night, and I look at the pictures on your wall. They're very nice. I said, thank you. You know, I can go to another room if you need me to. And she said, no, you stay. She said, I want to ask you something. She said, are you from South Carolina? I said, yes, ma'am, I am. Are you from Orangeburg? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, now, is this a picture of your mom that's on the wall? I said, yes, ma'am, that's my mom. She said, is your mom's name Patricia? Patricia Harrison? I said, yes, ma'am, my mom's name is Patricia Harrison. And she put her hand over her mouth and she started trembling. And she said, oh my God, I know your mother. I went to high school with your mother. I remember when your mom had to drop out of high school in order to have you. And folks, tears started rolling down her eyes. She started crying, and I started crying too. And she grabbed me and she hugged me, and she said this. She said, never in a million years would I have ever thought that Patricia Harrison's baby would make it right here to this Capitol. But folks, her final words is what really got me. Because she said all that, and she said, you give me hope. My friends, each and every one of you gives me hope. When the pundits and the doubters and the GOP try to get me down, I think of each and every one of you. Our state party chairs and vice chairs who are finding new ways to reach voters. You give me hope. Our voter protection staff working to secure our sacred right to vote. You give me hope. Our young DNC staffers who in their free time are registering young people at Harry Styles concerts because they care so deeply. You give me hope. Our caucuses and our councils that ensure that our party is a big, inclusive tent that looks like America. You give me hope. our volunteers and organizers who show up for their communities every single day. You give me hope. My friends, I have learned in my life, you can never beat hope. You can't beat the hope, the hard work, the love, and commitment of people who are people of hope. Folks ask me why I've always been so positive about our chances in November. And that is why. Because I know we've got what the GOP will never have. Each and every one of you. We got 59 days left, folks. Let that hope fuel you. In South Carolina, we say, while I breathe, I hope. But folks, I want you to go all across this country and let people know hope alone ain't going to be enough. We have to act. So our mantra for this Democratic Party over the next few years and few days is not while I breathe, I hope, but while I breathe, I vote. While I breathe, I mobilize. While I breathe, I organize. While I breathe, I protect our voters. That is who we are. That is who we are as a party. And I'm about to bring up one of our hope warriors in a minute. But before I introduce our Vice President, I want to take a moment to thank a young man who's been an integral part of my team as chair, my speechwriter, Dhruv Singh. Today is Dhruv's last day. He is leaving to attend Oxford. Young people like Dhruv give me hope for the future of our party. Dhruv, from the bottom of my heart, you are such a talent. I'm going to miss you, brother. Thank you. We wish you well. And one day, I can't wait until you are writing speeches for the Vice President and the President, because you are worthy of that. Thank you, Dhruv. God bless you. Folks, you know, when we talk about hope, I can't help but think about our Vice President. She gives folks in every corner of this nation hope. Every time she votes in the United States Senate, the American people win. Every time. The Vice President has put a spotlight on maternal health in this country. She is leading the administration's response to the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision. She is out on the road selling our infrastructure bill, making sure that the American people know exactly what we've got done for them. You know, I've talked about what the President's actions on student loans means personally to me as a low-income student, first-generation college student. The Vice President is a proud alum of Howard University, one of our flagship HBCUs. The President's action on student loans is going to entirely clear the debt of 1 in 4 black borrowers. So believe me, folks, the Vice President knows those faces. She knows those names. She knows their stories. And because of Vice President Harris, millions of kids across this country, kids of all backgrounds, with all different types of American stories, know how big they can dream. The impact of that cannot be measured, but it matters. As much as the victories she delivers for the American people, as much as her governing ability, the inspiration and hope she has given a grateful nation will define her leadership. Vice President Kamala Harris is for the people. She's hitting the doors, she's making the calls, she knows what's at stake, and she is fighting hard. And folks, we've got to fight hard for her. It is indeed my immense honor now to introduce our special guest. My friends, please join me in welcoming the Vice President of these United States, the Honorable Kamala Harris.
everybody. Have a seat. Have a seat. Jamie, you give me hope. It is so good to see all of these leaders under one roof at one time. I see so many friends. I want to thank you all. And Jamie, I want to thank you. You've been such an incredible leader at a very, very significant and important time in our country. And thank you for the passion and the drive and the inspiration that you give to this position and to all of us as Democrats. Can we hear it up for Jamie Harrison? Thank you. So I do want to say that when we think about where we are today, and to the DNC members, I want to thank you all, because you are the leaders who are making our promise real in this country. And so I thank you for that. To the elected leaders who are here and the elected officials, especially the state and local officials, thank you for lifting up our communities. As Jamie said, I've been traveling the country, convening, in particular, our Democrats at the state level, because with so much of what has happened recently, their leadership is as, if not more important than ever, in terms of you being on the ground, a recognizable face in the community, to remind people of all that is at stake and to give them a sense of optimism about our future. To the young leaders who are here, I thank you. You talked about a Harry Styles concert. That would be fun. But thank you for all that you are doing. I've met with so many of you, and you really are role models of what it means to understand the role of leadership that we all were born with, but it's a matter of when you decide to turn it on, and you all are doing that work. And to our labor leaders who are here, thank you for fighting on behalf of working people every day. As you know, I head up the Labor Council with Marty Walsh, Secretary of Labor, and Joe Biden and I are very proud that we will be the most pro-union administration in the history of our country. Indeed. So as Jamie said, we've got 59 days to go. 59. And our work, your work, is going to make all the difference, because we know, Democrats, the stakes are so high. As the president, as our president made clear in Philadelphia last week, the threats we face as a nation are great. Threats to our freedom, threats to our very democracy. And we need to speak truth about that. And so today, we all, by coming together, reaffirm that we refuse to let extremist so-called leaders dismantle our democracy. We convene today to recommit to the fight for freedom. Democrats, we here rise to meet this moment, and we've done it before. It wasn't very long ago, 2020, under extremely difficult circumstances, the American people stood for their country and our democracy in one of the greatest expressions of patriotism. They voted. They dropped off their ballot with their kids in the back seat. They took time off from work. They found childcare in order to stand in line for hours. Democrats, in 2020, you reminded American voters of the stakes. And so importantly, you reminded them that their vote matters and that they matter. And because of your work, more Americans voted than ever before, including a record number of younger voters. Because of your work, the American people delivered a Democratic Congress and sent Joe Biden and me to the White House. And so all of our progress since has proven that your work mattered. In 2020, the American people put their trust in Democrats. And over these last 18 months, Democrats have delivered. Let me rephrase that. Over these last 18 months, Democrats have delivered big time. And if there was any question about whether there's a difference between the parties, well, over the last 18 months, it has become crystal clear. There is a big difference. We all know that American families have been struggling. But while Republican Party leaders have gone on TV to opine about the situation, Democrats actually did something about it. Think back at the height of the pandemic, when Democrats provided emergency relief to the American people. You know, not one Republican in Congress voted for the bill. We extended the child tax credit, brought down in the first year child poverty in America by 40%. We gave parents a tax cut of up to $8,000 for the cost of raising a child, medical supplies, school supplies. And not one Republican in Congress voted with us. Just last month, when Democrats brought down health care costs, energy costs by passing the Inflation Reduction Act, again, not one Republican in Congress voted for the bill. For years, Big Pharma tried to pocket bigger profits by stopping Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices. Well, Democrats, we said enough, because we know that it is not right in a civil nation that people go broke or bankrupt just to be able to get the prescription medication they need to live. And because of us, Democrats, Medicare now has the power to negotiate drug prices on behalf of 60 million Americans. Because we don't put profits before people. And of course, Republican Party leaders strongly opposed us when we canceled between $10,000 and $20,000 in student debt for millions of Americans. But we know what's the right thing to do. They say they care about crime. Well, it was us who expanded background checks and passed the most significant gun violence law in 30 years. They made promise after promise about investing in infrastructure. You remember Infrastructure Week? Well, it was us. We led the way to the largest investment in our nation's infrastructure in a generation. They downplay, even deny the impact of climate change, as communities are literally on fire. We made the largest investment to combat the climate crisis in history and deliver on environmental justice for people everywhere. And yes, not one Republican voted with us. We have paid for all of this without raising taxes on working people. And you know, it's interesting, Republican Party leaders, well, they like to talk about fiscal responsibility. We have done all of this and brought down the deficit by a record amount. And let us not forget about our judiciary. We are ensuring that our judiciary looks like America. Yes. We have confirmed more women to the federal courts than ever before. Including to the highest court in our land. Her name is Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Right. So Democrats, I believe that when you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. So let us remind the American people what Democrats stand for. Let us remind the American people that we as Democrats, we fight for the people, all the people. Let us remind them in this moment that the stakes could not be higher. Right now, extremist so-called leaders are trumpeting the rhetoric of freedom, while they restrict and systematically attempt to take away freedoms. The United States Supreme Court just took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the people of America, from the women of America. And now, these extremist so-called leaders are passing laws to criminalize healthcare providers and punish women. They believe that government should make personal decisions for women. That government should make decisions for women about their own body. Well, we do not. We trust women. And an important point to be made on that subject is on the subject of choice and what the Dobbs decision has done and what it means. It's an important point to acknowledge that you don't have to abandon your faith or your beliefs to agree that the government should not be making that decision for her. And thank you, Kansas. You guys are here. Those extremist so-called leaders claim we should return this issue to the voters in the states. Well, isn't that ironic? Because some of the same people are the ones passing laws that intentionally make it more difficult for people in those states to vote. Passing laws that ban drop boxes and restrict early voting, laws that make it illegal to give people food and water when they've been standing in line for hours. Undemocratic laws, un-American laws. So again, in this moment, the stakes could not be higher. And take a look, because I have, at from which states are we seeing attacks on the freedom to vote, attacks on the LGBTQ+ community, attacks on women's rights to make decisions about their own bodies. Take a look at from where these attacks are happening, and you will then not be surprised to know that there's quite a few of those states that are doing all three at the same time. Florida, Georgia, Texas. And this November, those governors, well, they're going to have to answer to the voters. As I travel to visit with all of you, travel all over our country, let me tell you, folks know, they also know that elections matter up and down the ballot. right? Because think about it. As doctors are being criminalized, pay attention to those local county prosecutor races. As big lies are being perpetrated, pay attention to those Secretary of State races. In fact, in 11 states right now, in 11 states, Republican candidates for Secretary of State deny the results of the 2020 election. Just consider, the very people who don't trust elections want to be responsible for running them. And then there's DC, where we need to hold on, and we will hold on to the House of Representatives and expand our majority in the United States Senate. And on that point, allow me to lay out two very real scenarios for you. First, imagine, I don't want to, but imagine if we lost our Democratic majority in the Congress. Republican Party leaders have made it clear they want to ban abortion nationwide. And they won't stop there. Justice Clarence Thomas said the quiet part out loud. Marriage equality will be on the line. Contraception will be on the line. Without a Democratic majority in Congress, who knows what other rights they will come after. Now, imagine a better future. Imagine what we can do if we defend the 5 seats we need to hold on to the majority in the House. Imagine what we can do if we protect and, better yet, expand our majority in the Senate. Imagine. We can then fight to ensure every worker has paid family leave. We can fight to ensure every family can afford child care. We can fight to ensure every child care provider is paid fairly also. Because you see, we've done a lot over these last 18 months, but we still have a lot more work that we're ready to do. And Democrats, with just 2 more seats in the Senate, we can codify Roe v. Wade. We can put the protections of Roe into law. With 2 more seats in the United States Senate, we can pass the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. 2 more seats. That's right. 2 more seats. And you know, our president, Joe Biden, he's been clear. He's kind of done with those archaic Senate rules that are standing in the way of those 2 issues. He's made that clear and has said that he will not allow that to obstruct those 2 issues. And you know, for me, as vice president, I'm also president of the Senate. And, and in our first year in office, some of the historians here may know, I actually broke John Adams' record of casting the most tie-breaking votes in a single term. How about that? How about that? And so, that being the case, I cannot wait to cast the deciding vote to break the filibuster on voting rights and reproductive rights. I cannot wait. "59 days." So 59 days, and here's the good news. You all know it, I can feel the energy in the room. We've got momentum on our side. Because again, if I may ask, the Kansans in the room to stand so we can applaud what you did. Yeah. Momentum. Look what happened in Kansas. The people there, these leaders, and so many, joined together and protected reproductive rights in their state. Look what happened in New York's Hudson Valley. Remember, the pundits predicted a Republican victory, but the people elected a Democrat to Congress. Look what's happening just last week in Alaska. How about that? Mary Peltola is on her way to the United States House of Representatives. And by the way, it's the first time a Democrat has won that seat in 50 years. So, in the next 59 days, it is up to all of us here to build on this momentum. And each and every one of these days counts. And know that the majority of Americans are with us on so many of these issues. Because we stand with the people and we fight for the people. And we are committed to leading our nation forward, not back. So to every American, let us say, if you believe in the right to privacy, in the promise of freedom and liberty, in the ideal of self-determination, then stand with Democrats. If you believe in the promise of America, then stand with us. Because you see, we do believe fundamental to America is to protect women's rights. Fundamental to America is to protect LGBTQ rights. Fundamental to the strength of America is to fight for workers' rights. Fundamental to who America has always been and will be is to fight for immigrant justice. Fundamental to having responsible policing is the point that if we want to be safer and treat all as equals, this is what we do. If we as a nation want to invest in small businesses that make America stronger, stand with us. If you want to build the middle class and expand opportunity for every American, wherever they live, be it a big city, a suburb, or a small town, stand with us. This is a pivotal moment in our nation's history. And make no mistake, this election is how we rise to meet it. You all have heard me paraphrase Coretta Scott King so many times, and I'm about to do it again. She said, "Struggle is a never-ending process, and freedom is never really won. You earn it, and you win it in every generation." And today I'm going to add a piece. And you earn it, and you win it in every election. So in 59 days, we will determine the future of our nation. And in these 59 days, then, let's leave it all on the field. Because when we fight, we win. God bless you all. God bless America. Thank you. Thank you.